Hello. So today we have Bobby here, and we're going to be talking about his eczema healing journey. And Bobby has a fairly common story with his eczema journey. And just as a little background before we jump in, so Bobby had spoken to a doctor about having allergies all of a sudden at age 34. And so this is common with that hasn't been well since picture, getting this allergic picture as an adult, which most people think that just happens as a child. So for Bobby, his light bulb moment was, hang on, how does that just happen? There has to be something going on inside my body with my diet or with my lifestyle. So that was his kind of trailhead to start investigating. And like most people, well, most people start out either being green to the eczema world, and then they go to that researcher part. They get stuck in the rabbit holes of researching everything on the internet. And then they can go into that veteran category where they've tried a million different things. So Bobby was at the point where he was researching everything. And it's for anybody who's had eczema, we've all been caught there. It can be really overwhelming because there's a million different theories and things that you should do, eat this, don't eat that, take this, use this cream. And it can be really, really overwhelming. And for Bobby's situation, Bobby's really busy. Bobby is just juggling everything in life. We were just talking about how he's renovating his house, work, life, like health as well. So he didn't have time to be getting caught in these rabbit holes, and not to mention just the frustration and not knowing where to start as well. So it was pretty cool that Bobby had that motivation, and he used this as that motivator to be like, okay, something needs to shift here. And that's something that I really, everybody in the Love Your Skin program, like we all, whenever Bobby gets on the calls, there's just like, it's really cool hearing Bobby talk about things because he has used this as motivation, and he has this as a moment where, okay, something needs to change. Something needs to shift here. So I just want to applaud you, Bobby, because you took this on when you're juggling everything in life. And for most people, they would be like, I just don't have time to do this. But it is really cool when you can see people use these points as motivation and prioritizing their health, because, your health is essentially your experience of life, right? So it's cool to see you go through the process, have the aha moments. But yeah, I think this is going to be a good conversation for anybody who's stuck in that researcher phase, to give you a little bit motivation. So welcome, Bobby. Thank you for sharing and taking the time to chat today. So let's get started. It's always good to rewind to like before you started the program, and what was your eczema journey like, and what are some of the things that you tried or researched before you got started?
Okay. Well, like you mentioned, it was kind of in my mid-30s where I hit that point that things just didn't make sense to me anymore. I don't understand how I developed an allergy, according to the doctor, in my mid-30s and stuff like that. And then the more I thought about it, once I joined the program, it looked back throughout my life, and there was just a lot of things that I learned to just live with that were part of the eczema journey, I guess. So for me, like she said, I researched a lot. I was doing different diets. I tried creams. I had terrible reactions. I told doctors I didn't want to try steroid creams. I kind of proved their point and showed them what it did. And I just got to a point where I was just super frustrated, didn't know what else to try. The elimination diets they worked and then they didn't work. I always knew that there was more to it. So the program was kind of a big eye opener for me that kind of tied a lot of things together that I think it was like our first conversation. It made me realize that this was something that I needed to do, and that there was never going to be a right time to do it. I needed to do it for me. So.
Yeah, that's really great. So yeah, it was interesting when you started because you were at a point where you couldn't really eat anything. So, usually we're like, okay, eat all this food as medicine to start with, but you're at that point where you couldn't even, like, you were in so much pain with your gut. And also you also didn't have time. So it was a really, really big shift for you. But had you tied in before that? Because we started talking about, okay, if you have all these gut issues, which we kind of focused on with you at the beginning, and still, but had you correlated your gut and your skin before?
Not really, no. I always thought it was just my gut was not agreeing with certain foods, or I had some kind of condition that nobody knew what was wrong with it. I just assumed that was the way I was supposed to be.
Yeah. So that was kind of like your normal, your baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how did that affect you day to day, having all the gut issues?
Well, it'd been going on so long that it kind of became the norm, like you said. But like some days I just wouldn't be able to eat. Some days I would be so stressed out that I wouldn't eat. There was days where I would eat, but I couldn't eat as much as I'd wanted to, or I'd feel full as soon as I do, or I'd feel really bloated. Um, like anytime I drink pop and stuff like that, sometimes that's all I would have all day, and a chocolate bar, which I mean, obviously it's not very nutritious. So it just kind of fed the monster.
Yep. Yeah. And it's always helpful when people start the program, we look at their health history. So we start looking at, okay, what was your diet before? Right. And you can backtrack and say, okay, where, like, when was that hasn't been well since picture. So you got the allergies, and then looking at the diet. If it's predominantly been can't eat because it's like life's busy, and actually can't stomach food, right? You're not going to have the microbes to feed the good bacteria. And then feeding the opportunistic bacteria, the sugar, and it's a loop, and it just feeds into that cycle. And especially when you're at the point where you just can't even eat. And then something else that you had mentioned as well is you're so stressed you can't eat. So had you connected that stress and eczema connection before?
No, not at all. Not until we discovered the whole bucket with the start of the program. So I was just wandering lost.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about what landed for you with that bucket analogy.
I mean, the gut and skin connection, just our overall mindset, how many things we can really literally have going on that play a factor into our breakouts, our stress levels, and kind of everything that contributes to us having flare-ups or things like that. So it was kind of nice to understand that once you empty out the bucket, that it begins to get a little easier to process. And I mean, eventually your skin does clear up. And that's when you start to connect even more and go, oh, well, maybe there was something to that. And then the more you stick with it, and the breathing and the diet, and it starts to really translate, and you see the bigger picture. It does take a little while, but it's hard to ignore.
Yeah. Once you see it and once you understand it, you're just like, okay, I see what's been going on. Yeah. So I'll give a little background. The bucket analogy, which I talk about a lot. So your body's like a flare-up bucket. So it's a bucket of inflammation. So there's going to be so many different things that are creating the inflammation. So what Bobby had said, there's going to be having a lot of sugar and processed foods that will take up a lot, a diet that's low in nutrients to offset that inflammation. And that's not feeding the good bacteria. There's going to be stress. And then, with the dysfunction of having low nutrients and high sugar, that can create an imbalance and damage to the gut. So that's going to create more inflammation. And so then it can just keep compounding to the point. And then the allergic picture from the doctor, to the point where all those little things are drops in the bucket. When your body can't keep up anymore, it hasn't been well since picture, having allergies, can't eat, your bucket's overflowing, right? We know that there's so much inflammation, it starts coming out through the skin. What we need to do is not just avoid everything, but what we want to do is be able to drain the bucket so you can have those foods. So there is stress in life, and you don't have to get a flare up. So you have more resiliency to withstand all of this. So yeah, it's helpful when you can put a container, I guess, and understand what all of that means. Because otherwise it's just like everything's happening, not sure what's going on, and it can just be really, really frustrating. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, where are you at now with on the healing journey. Yeah, what's changed for you? You know, you're still on your journey as well, but what's been a big shift for you?
The hugest one has been my diet. The having no pop or processed sugar or kind of the crappy foods for a very long time. I honestly didn't think I could do it. I mean, I was so much into sugar before, but the more I kind of dove into it, the more I realized that I didn't really need the sugar. It was a bad habit that I had developed, that was the easiest thing to reach for, where I can still have things that I can reach for, but use a healthy alternative that's not going to poison me, so to speak. So getting to the point now where I kind of understand what, or have a really good feeling what the root cause is, and we're going to, you know, dive into that with the GI map a little bit further, and then just sticking to the system and getting to that other side.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that are where you were, and then just having a lot of sugar. And it's a classic Western diet, right? And you just reach for something easy. And with having all that sugar, right, there's the dopamine response, the reward center, and there's also an emotional attachment to sugar as well. So it is really hard to come off sugar. I remember I did a no sugar challenge and I didn't think I ate a lot of sugar and I still got the headaches. And I was just like, whoa. And then it plays on your mind. You just are like, I feel like an addict. But yeah, it is hard to quit sugar, but you do notice such a difference when you do. Did you notice any changes just in terms of your energy?
Yes and no. I mean, it was a little bit, I definitely have more natural energy now, but just being so busy as I am, I'm still tired all the time, but I don't have to rely on those little sugar bursts to get me through the day.
Yeah, that's good. And that's what a lot of people do, is like they're like so lethargic. They need that blood glucose hit, they have some sugar, but then they crash again. And it's just a big loop. Yeah. So before starting the Love Your Skin program, did you have any like objections or resistance or anything like that? Any kind of question marks?
About the program?
Yeah.
I think part of human nature is always to be a little bit skeptical. You never really know. But like I said, I was pretty certain after the first couple conversations that not only were you able to tie in a lot of the things that I had been rabbit holing, but it made a lot of sense. And the more I listened to you, the more I understood what you were saying. And I guess the bigger the big picture became clear. I guess you're able to make that very clear to me. So it just became a no-brainer.
Yeah. Because there's always just, like you said, it's human nature just to question things. And especially when you've dove down so many rabbit holes and researching so many things. And I mean, the internet's a crazy place. So yeah, it is one of those things where you just have to do it to try it and then to see the outcome. And it's good that like you're very different, Bobby, because you are just really motivated. So it is cool that you just jumped in. So definitely want to congratulate you with that. Yeah. Okay, cool. Would you have any, I guess, words of wisdom for people that are maybe just starting the program, or for people who are maybe at the beginning of their healing journey, still doing some of the research?
Yeah, as frustrating as it can be sometimes, just enjoy the process. You know, slow down. Don't beat yourself up. You're gonna have good days. You're gonna have bad days. You know, lean on the program. The community is great for support. Anytime you have any questions, people will help you out. And just realize that there's never a good time to start something like this. It's going to be a challenge, and you just have to take those small steps, because the way you accomplish something big is small steps. So you just got to put one foot in front of the other, and you'll get to where you want to go.
Very wise words. And that's like why we call it a journey, right? There's no overnight quick fix. You know, if somebody says, okay, do this in 12 weeks, it doesn't happen. And even after the program, like you still continue doing all the things that you learn. So it is a lifestyle shift, and very wise words of just one foot in front of the other, because it is day by day. It's not going to happen overnight. And if you have those expectations, it's going to be really hard. So it is just take it day after day. There will be hard days. And the big thing is just reaching out for help, because it is so hard dealing with eczema on your own, and just like feeling really isolated. So thank you, Bobby, for sharing your journey and your wise words of wisdom. Yeah, it was a pleasure chatting to you. And I think for a lot of people, we just did the food as medicine workshop, and people were just so confused of why they had food sensitivities and allergies as an adult. So it's kind of a good overview of what we had spoken about. And Bobby's a really good example of that, because it wasn't just the food, right? And it wasn't just allergies. It was, okay, what damage did that do, right? Looking at the gut symptoms. Okay, all these gut symptoms are coming out. Looking at his health history. What were you eating? Looking at lifestyle and stress. All of that added to Bobby's bucket. And it's the hard thing if you're just starting out on the journey, because it's never just one thing with eczema. It's just an accumulation of everything that's causing inflammation. So a really good example, and kind of tied everything that we've been chatting about together. So thank you so much, Bobby.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. Okay. Stop recording.